Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, we'll look at part 4 of the Stitch With Me Barn Owl workshop. Now, it's a slow stitching workshop to really help you create your barn owl that we start on class 1, where we create the template, create the sketch, and attach fabric. In the subsequent videos, we start to add more details where we come up to today's class. In today's class, we're going to stitch around the eyes and add details to the nose and the face. So let's get started. So now we're going to work on our face and filling it out. I like to start with the eyes and work around them. So I'm going to take my beige thread, I have it on my needle, and what I want to do is come around the eyes, bringing my stitches along, kind of making somewhat of an eyebrow, but really emphasizing that eye shape. So to do that, I want all my stitches to very gently approach the nose, kind of in this formation here, and I'll match it on this side. And I want them just to come around the top just a little bit. And because it's that beige color, it's a subtle effect. I'll start up top here, right on that arc, and follow that shape right down. And I'll just bring my stitches close together, really emphasizing that shape. And I want the stitches to fall just short of each other. So I pull them back and bring them down. Then I'm just going to stitch parallel to the stitches we've already put down with our gold thread. So I'm really emphasizing that shape, that curve once again. Now, depending on your fabric, it may not be very noticeable, and it's just barely noticeable here. So I want my stitches to overlap so that the end of the stitch comes right over here. So here's my previous stitch. I want this stitch to come right there. And I'm going to follow that down the length of that side. So it goes 3/4 of the way down and then just up a little bit of the way of the stitch. And I'm really emphasizing that shape. And I'll take it all the way down to that mark that I made just at the top of the nose. Now, once I've got to that point, I want to bring my stitches just deeper, slightly down further, and now I'm going to just make my way towards that nose. And again, I'm keeping these stitches fairly long and at an angle until I get right to that nose, just like that. And then once I'm here, I'm just going to build up a few stitches so that there's a soft blend from the stitches we made right to the nose. So I want my stitches to go a little shorter each time, not going quite so high. I'll get a little shorter each time as we get closer to that nose. Just like that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to knot off my thread. And continue over here doing that same procedure. Using that same color, I start at the edge of that eye, so I'm kind of making a little bit of an eyebrow with my stitch, and then I follow those stitches all the way around the eye, just overlapping slightly to the previous stitch. Continue all the way. And if I skipped a stitch, I can just go back and add it in. It's not a problem. And I want to go right down the length of that eye that we made with that golden color. Just overlapping ever so slightly. This gives a little bit of texture. And I continue going out just until I get to that line that we sketched. And then I want to make my stitches shorter and work my way to the nose. Once I have them down, I can go back in, decide if I missed a stitch. And now I just want to make a nice transition from the eye to that nose, just like we did on this side. So I'll make small little stitches coming up and going down. And as they get closer to the eye, they get just a slightly bit larger. And that makes a nice transition. So I'll knot that off right on the back here. Now I want to come back in with some more of this beige thread, and I want to go around the outside of the eye. So my eye is going to kind of make a larger shape, but just with that beige color. You can make it teardrop shape, you can make it rounded, and that's just the guide. So I'm going to start at the top of the eye, just beneath this last stitch I put down, and I want to slowly stitch getting closer to the eye. So it'll take 1 or 2 stitches. And now that I'm closest to the eye, I'm going to continue to go around that eye. All my stitches pointing in the same direction to the outside with a slight curve downward. And this is just to mimic the feathers around the eye. And I'll just continue all the way around, keeping all my stitches within that little area that we framed out. They don't have to touch each other, although they certainly could if you wanted that density. But I just like to make those stitches all the way around the eye. You could even start at that border that you made with your marker and bring your stitches up. Then when you get kind of beneath the eye, I'm going to slowly work my stitches from the point here towards the eye. So I'll bring them right from the edge, bring them back closest to that eye, and again from the section we sketched out closest to the eye. And then if there's a little gap, I'll just come in and add another stitch. Just like that. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to start at the top and build my stitches down, getting them closer to the eye. This really frames a face. Come in. And now I want all my stitches to go out from the eye, just to that border that we sketched. Again, all pointing towards the outside of the face. Right to that border. Then when we get underneath the eye, we're going to make all our stitches be directed from the center outward. So I'm starting right now to change the angle of my stitches, and they're starting to go outward. I left a little gap here, so I'll come in, add another stitch, and then I'll just stitch between the eye and the end of that marker that we sketched, that shape, bringing it right to the nose and right to that golden beige color. Just like that. So now's a good time to use my iron to get rid of any of the ink marks so that we can see exactly what we have to work with here. I want to create a little bit of a line up top here, maybe 2 rows following this arc. And my fabric is still a little bit warm, so that's why the line didn't show up. So I'll just have to let it cool a moment. And now I can create my line a little bit better. And I want to create a series of stitches following those arcs using that beige thread. And you can make them whatever length you want. So I'm going to start here, and I want them to all go up. So I'll start just below that mark and bring them up all at an angle away from that eye. I want to keep all the stitches spaced, but I'll have that little bit of an angle. Come in and go up. And as I get to the top, the stitches will become more vertical. And as they go around, they'll follow that shape of that eye. And I can always come back in and fill it out a little further. I'm making a few stitches here. Again, following the shape of that eye. And when I get to close to the end of the eye, I'm just going to make a longer stitch. And now I think I'll just fill in a few more spots here for stitches. I'll knot my needle off on the back. Rethread my needle with this color and finish this row up top here, as well as these two arcs. So we have those sort of eyebrows stitched into place, and that's starting to look really good. What I want to do now is just work on the remainder of the face, and this will vary based on the size of the nose that you have. So I want to create a series of stitches following these shapes. You can even fit a third row in there if you make small stitches. So I'm going to take my beige thread and I'll start up top here, and all my stitches are going to be coming out from the eyes out radially. So I can start up top here, and I just want to make a little stitch, and this is to mimic feathers, and it's the direction that the feathers go. I'll skip a little space in between all my stitches because I'm just trying to add texture. This is not a major visual point. What we want to do is have a plethora of stitches, an enormous number of stitches, hundreds of stitches, when this is all complete. Right now I'm just stitching those little shapes to make the feathers. And I'll continue this all the way around the face, radiating from the eyes all the way down. Now you could make the stitches as close together as you'd like, or as long as you'd like. I like these little stitches here. And if I skipped a stitch or left too much of a gap, I can go back in at any point and just add another stitch. And I bring it all the way down, right around the face, right till I get to the nose. And you can decide how close you want to get to the nose. We do have some detail work to do in our next class, but before then I wanted to have all the stitches on the face completed with this beige color. So I'll just continue all the way around, following that arc but not making a line. The line that we created with the marker is really just our guide. That's where we want the stitches to form from, to overhang. You can be far more precise if you want to be by creating your guides with two lines instead of just the one. I'm just overlapping my guide line here. I'm just going over it and under it. And again, my strokes are pointing away from the eyes, heading outward all the way around. And I like to bring these stitches all the way up to the top of that face. They can get a little smaller as they go up top. It's totally up to you. And that randomness of it makes it really unique and original each time you stitch. And then lastly, I'm going to make a small little row on the bottom here. Again, my stitches are going to radiate out from the center of the face. I can always go back in and add more stitches if I want to really make it thicker or more textured. I like to start out this way. When I get done with this row, I'll analyze it and take a look at what I'm doing. Now I like to come down underneath the beak and then get ready to stitch on the other side. But for now, I want to take a look at what I've done here. And I'm liking the way this is coming out. I'm going to finish up here on this side with my little stitches. And then in our next class, our final class, we'll complete the eyes and add a little more shading to the face. So I hope you found this video helpful. We have one more class left in the workshop where we'll really fine-tune some details to make our barn owl pop. Thanks for joining me. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe.